a second and talk about, social cognition and cognitive functioning. Can you describe what areas of social cognition that the guys that you work with have trouble with, and then how you tackle those difficulties with cognitive remediation therapy? And then I know a big part of Alice Medalia's program is the bridging aspect. So what kind of bridging activities do you do to help foster that social cognitive growth?
Sure. So things we tackle with social cognition is it's kind of like knowing the boundaries of your own thoughts, recognizing what thoughts of yours are normal thoughts, and then what thoughts of yours might begin to go beyond I don't know the best, I hate the word normal, but go beyond the realm of what typical thinking is, and start going into like, am I starting to think like a little bit like my illness? So, and actually we just try to use the word psychosis. And in the first, the SCIT program is divided up kind of into 3 chunks. And in the first section, we talk a lot about feelings, feeling words that we're going to use through the whole SCIT program to address feelings, so that the guys get very familiar with what those words are. And then so we have 7 basic feeling words, and the guys have to come up with their own definition for each feeling word. Well, that was a fun
Can you give an example?
Yeah. Like, well, angry, and they had to define angry. What does angry mean? What is angry to you? And they were just kind of like stumped, like they know what it is to be angry, but in that social setting too, they all know like it would be inappropriate for me to be angry right now. So talking about what it's like to be angry almost felt inappropriate for them, and they were all very held back. But I finally got it out of them. It took quite a while, but they came up with some excellent definitions. But then we also had to address one additional word, which was going to be used a lot during the social cognition training over the course of the 20 or 25 sessions, and that was the word paranoid. And so I said, okay, what other words? I wrote the word paranoid up on the board, and I was like, what other words do you guys use to describe this? And so they gave me a list of like 6 or 7 words. And I said, all right, you guys need to come to kind of a group decision about what words you want to use out of these 6 or 7 words. Which one do you guys really use the most to describe this? And they got to pick, between paranoid, suspicious, like hinky, there was a whole list of words up there. And so they picked, I can't even remember which word they picked for sure. And then they had to define it. And so that's our 8th feeling word, basically. And so now we have our 8 basic feeling words, and they're going to continue to go back to those throughout the groups.
And you brought up that anger was a very complicated emotion for them to find, and they had trouble doing that. Do they have difficulty communicating when they're angry, and communicating when they feel sad?
They have, I have one guy, I think, that is very in touch with anger. And he's a very, just in general, he's a very emotive person. But he's also one of our more sick participants in terms of the level of his psychosis, his response to medications. But his personality style is also very vibrant. He's very kind of a sanguine guy, where he likes to be, when he's in the mood, he likes to be the life of the party. And so he actually was kind of cohesive factor in the very beginning of group, because he was the first one to kind of just straight out address, hey, here's what my diagnosis is. What do you guys got? I mean, he just straight up asked him. I could have hugged him. I was so happy. He just, because the guys were all being like really kind of like,
Yeah.
they all kind of looked a little nervous and afraid. And it was at the end of the very first group session, and everybody had talked and done well. And it was a pretty, you know, it was a good group, and I felt good, positive about it. And he stopped everybody at the door before they left. And he just turned around and completely blocked the door so nobody could leave. Here's my name, and I have schizophrenia, and I hear voices. What are you guys here for? What do you have? And so it was just like tumbleweeds, quiet. And finally, my youngest guy, who's still finishing high school, but he's 18, spoke up, gave what his diagnosis is, mentioned that he's had voices, but he's not having them right now. And then finally, the next guy kind of trickled in, and then the next guy. And I was like, I just told him, I was like, guys, I'm so proud of y'all. Because right after my client had said that, I just quickly mentioned, I said, you guys can talk about this as much or as little as you want right now, but I will tell you, we'll get into this stuff as we go through group. So you don't have to say anything right now if you don't want to. And that's when my youngest guy spoke up, and they all just kind of went around and mentioned it. I was just so proud of them all, you know, because it's something really hard to do.
Yeah, it's very scary. With the people that you work with and your clients, how are they about recognizing emotions in others and examining facial expressions? Or I think especially for younger people too, we communicate so much with text messaging. Are they able to understand the emotive context of a text message?
So that's two good questions, actually. How are they with feelings and facial expressions? We just did our first session on recognizing feelings in others and recognizing facial expressions. So it was kind of a whole, it was supposed to be a whole session on that subject itself. And then there was kind of a group activity we were supposed to do based on that. And, you know, it was supposed to be that I got involved and went along with them and participated with them. But they absolutely did not need me. So I just kind of stepped back and let them do it. But we had our feeling words on the board, and they were supposed to practice doing the facial expression that goes along with the feeling word, and let other group members guess what feeling they were expressing. And like nobody could figure it out. So it was the two-way street of having extreme difficulty expressing like what worried looks like, plus the group members having an extremely hard time figuring out what worried is supposed to look like. Because even when I showed them what worried looked like, they were like guessing everything else.
Do they understand what worried feels like? And
they do, like you said, they have a very difficult time making the cognitive connection between this is what this emotion looks like and feels like. So surprisingly, they have asked, as hard as that exercise was, they have asked me, can we practice that again? So they've asked for more of those types of activities, which I was just floored that they asked for stuff like that, because it typically when it's has to do with emotions and feelings, people, especially toward the beginning of a group setting, may not jump right in and be ready to go for those kind of harder, I'm going to push you a little bit sessions. But in particular, young males will not necessarily jump right in and be like, hey, can we do some more of that hard feelings stuff?
Yeah.
But they did, because they liked the challenge, and I think they were all surprised that they had such a hard time.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was very lovely to have you talking about the program that you're providing for these people. It sounds like you're doing some awesome work at UT Southwestern. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much.